Hey everyone, welcome to our second week of our series called Pro Tip. And so, okay people, so quick question. How many skateboarders do we have here? Growing up, I thought I was great at skateboarding, but I really wasn't good at all. One day, my mom actually took my friends and me to a local skate park in Redmond, Washington, and I was ready to show off my skills. So whether skateboarding is your thing or it's not, there's one obvious thing that every wannabe skater should know. If you're taking your board to a skate park, you should probably wear protective gear. Like all the gear, but not me. All I had was a helmet. And there were all kinds of things that I could have worn, like knee pads and elbow pads, but I thought I was a pro. Keyword, thought. And my first time actually trying to drop in, I ate it and I scraped my elbow pretty bad. And that was the start to the end of my skating career. It didn't last much longer. I didn't enjoy hurting myself, which I did often when I was skateboarding. But that moment didn't just affect my skateboarding. I remember being slowed down at school because my elbow had hurt so bad, and I thought about how I wish I could go back and put on a little more gear, like maybe some elbow pads, and I would be just fine. And the whole only wear a helmet idea wasn't a good one because that's not cool. But here's what's interesting about that. My decision to only wear a helmet, it wasn't wrong, it was unwise. But it wasn't like legally wrong because that's all they require at the skate park. I didn't break any laws, I didn't lie, I didn't cheat in any way. I didn't even hurt anyone except myself, but that's besides the point. Some choices obviously fall in either the right or the wrong or good or the bad categories. Murder is clearly wrong. Stealing and cheating are undoubtedly no good things, but you already know that a lot of things, most things aren't so simple. For example, lying. Okay, flat out, that is wrong, but don't we just try to justify it, like saying things like, what if there are special circumstances? Or say you have a friend who would be extremely hurt if you were honest about your opinion of their style. That can't turn out good for anyone. Wouldn't it just be better to lie and say that you like the outfit? Or maybe you forget to do your homework, but it would be easier to make up a story about why you forgot it than actually tell the truth. How about boundaries when it comes to things like sex? Maybe you've heard people in the church talk about how sex was meant to happen in marriage. But isn't it true that we kind of like to treat physical stuff as if it's like on a sliding scale? There's a whole range of things before sex. So what about kissing? Is it right or wrong? And how far can I go before it seems like the okay turns into, oh, that's wrong? Are you really supposed to not do anything until marriage, or is everything okay before marriage? How do you know? Okay, let's get really real now. What about your friends? We've all got that one friend who makes bad decisions and they're not a bad person. So what do you do with that? Maybe they don't pressure you to join them, but over time, some of their language and habits and decisions rub off on you. But are you really supposed to just dump a friend? And aren't Jesus followers supposed to basically be friends with everybody? So what are you supposed to do with a good person who isn't necessarily good for you? Or maybe nothing seems more gray than what you post. You know, by now what to post to get a fewer or a lot more likes. And after all, everyone does it, but the thing that gets more posts often toe the line of what's appropriate. Whether it comes at the expense of your reputation or someone else's reputation. These posts are the kind of posts that just may be a little awkward or straight up haunt you at your first job interview a few short years from now. So should your profile be full of what gets the biggest response? After all, isn't that kind of the point of posting in the first place? And you could probably think of a million scenarios just like these ones that I just talked about, where the situation isn't as easy as saying, oh, this is right and this is wrong. Every day we encounter situations that fall somewhere in between. Situations won't always have a clear this is good and this is bad answer. So the question is, how do you make decisions when the answer isn't obvious? And there's a word that summarizes the answer to all of those questions, and that word is wisdom. Now, there are a few ways to explain wisdom, but here's a simple way to think about it. Wisdom helps us avoid foolish decisions. And that's what this series is all about. Wisdom is really what stands in the gap between amateur and pro thinking, between rookie mistakes and decisions you'll one day be proud of. So over the next few weeks, we're going to look at some big ideas from the book of Proverbs. And if you're not familiar with the Bible, Proverbs is a collection of thoughts, sayings, instructions about life, and other insights that are full of wisdom. And much of Proverbs was written by someone named Solomon, who was a king in ancient Israel. And at that time, Solomon was considered one of the wisest people in history. And as we'll talk about over the next few weeks, Proverbs is a great place to go when you don't know what to do. For example, check this out in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. It says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." So trust God. Trust the one who made everything, including you, who knows everything and who knows how everything works. Plus, as Jesus made clear, he's a God who absolutely loves you, which means he can be trusted. So trust God. Trust God's understanding. And then don't only rely on your own understanding. And I'll admit that just feels a little weird, right? Like we should all go with what our gut is telling us, right? Okay, mostly yes. And if you're in a dangerous situation and your gut tells you to run or yell for help, do that. But at the same time, we all know times that we made decisions that were really awful. And sometimes we need more than just our gut instinct. So imagine that your younger sibling wanted to argue with you about what happens at the end of Stranger Things, but they've only ever seen the trailer. You've watched the entire show and they've only seen 2 minutes of a trailer. And I don't have to tell you this, but you know that you'd have a better understanding of how the show ends because you've seen the whole thing. The way God sees our lives works in a similar way. So let's take a look at some life situations right here. As you see, I have some life situations right here. So think of it all like this. Think of a situation in your life. For example, you found a piece of leftover pizza in your fridge that has been there for quite a few days. You're trying to decide whether or not it's okay to still eat, and that situation is represented by this pushpin. So maybe you're 14 and you've never been in this situation before, and this is your first time in that situation like this. And it's pizza and you don't see any mold, so would it really hurt? You eat it and you don't feel so good the next day, and so you kind of get a little bit more. You get another pushpin here. Maybe you're a senior and you've been in a whole situation like this 3 times and you've seen it happen 3 other times, and or at least twice, someone's gotten sick from eating old pizza. And so you just have a lot of experience with people eating old pizza. And so I'm dropping some of these here, but you're getting the point here. And so you're getting a little bit more experience by seeing other people do it as well. And so you're like, okay, I'm getting some life experiences as I'm watching other people get sick from eating moldy pizza. Or maybe you're an adult and you've seen in this situation, you've seen it like 8 times, and it's happened to other people 12 times, and you have your own experience eating bad pizza, but you've also seen other people eat some bad pizza. And so you're just getting more life experiences, and you can now name multiple occasions from your life and others where eating something kind of old didn't end up well. But here, let's think of this. If you're God, you've been around since the very beginning. You have literally seen the situation every time it has ever happened, and you created everyone in the situation. You know a lot more if you're God. So we can trust his wisdom in this. And we only know what we know. We only know our little bit of experiences. In other words, we can only know what we've experienced, which means that someone who's older than us, who has experienced more in the world than us, naturally sees more of the situation than we do. And God has a greater perspective than us. Okay, so let's continue to break this down in the verse. So it talks about trusting God and don't only rely on your own understanding. And then in all your ways, submit to God. Submit is a strange word. In other translations, use the word acknowledge God, but the big idea is to invite God to be involved and in charge of every part of your life. And it's not just a once a week thing. You can choose to trust God with all of your life. And if you do choose to entrust your life to God, God will make your paths straight. Another translation says it like this. In Proverbs 3:6, this is the last part of it, and he will show you which path to take. So listen, if you're human, and I hope you are if you're watching this, your perspective is limited. But Solomon is saying that when we trust God with our lives, God will help us see the next step on a better path forward. And following that path now is the best way to avoid making decisions that could negatively impact our future. Trusting God is the wisest thing that you can do. So think of it this way. Trusting God is a pro move. Following God's wisdom in the gray areas of our life today will be something that we'll never regret. And as we've seen, life doesn't always present clear-cut choices. Should you stay with your significant other who isn't bad for you, they just aren't good for you either? Should you post just for likes or be a little more intentional with your content? Or what's the best way to spend your time? The answers to questions like these are found by getting and using wisdom. It means to start practicing and thus developing pro thinking now so that you can have a pro life later. We're going to talk about that next week. And Solomon provides some great starting points for finding wisdom and avoiding pitfalls on your path. So trust God. Seek out God's wisdom for your situation and get God involved in your journey. But how do you actually do that? So first, check out the Bible. Like we said earlier, Proverbs is a great place to start gaining wisdom and seeing what God has to say. Another great place to start reading is the accounts of Jesus' life on earth. And Jesus' life is documented by Jesus followers in the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And these are the 4 accounts of Jesus' life. And you probably know this, but Jesus had a lot to say about experiencing life to the fullest, to living a life free of regret. And you can easily park in Proverbs and the Gospels and stockpile wisdom for a great while later. Also, show up to your life group. And by show up, I mean, yes, actually be there. But even more than that, choose to be dialed in, choose to participate, choose to listen and ask questions, choose not to be a distraction, choose to be trustworthy as well as vulnerable with your life group. Just having a different perspective can help you see things that you couldn't see on your own. And everyone in your group has lived a life that's different from yours. So talk to them, share what's going on, tell them about the decisions that you're facing. And I bet you have a lot of wisdom waiting right there. And finally, talk with your life group leader or trusted older and wiser adults. Remember, perspective is key, and this person has lived a different life and lived it longer than you. And chances are there are people in your circle, in your room, who would be glad to listen and offer their insight on what you're facing. Everything happening in your life today will be a part of your story. So what kind of story do you want your life to tell? If you want to tell a pro one, that doesn't happen overnight. Pro tip, it starts by leaning into wisdom today. So as a young adult, the choice is entirely up to you, but you owe it to yourself to at least think about how you make decisions and whether wise choices today lead to a better tomorrow. So let me pray for you. Father, I just pray that we can just learn to trust you in everything, that we can learn to listen to you and know when you're speaking to us so that we can really make the right choices today so we can have a better tomorrow. So continue to be with us, Lord. We thank you so much. We love you and pray this in your name. Amen. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I hope you have a wonderful week. We will see you guys later. Bye.